You think being kind will protect you. That if you're nice enough, agreeable enough, selfless enough, people will respect you, love you, treat you well. But here's the reality. Kindness without boundaries is a magnet for manipulation. The more you bend to please everyone, the more you break who you really are. This isn't a call to be cruel. It's a wake-up call to stop confusing kindness with weakness and start choosing self-respect over approval. You think being kind all the time makes you a good person. You think it's noble, selfless, the high ground. But here's the hard truth. Kindness without limits doesn't make you virtuous. It makes you invisible. When you're constantly bending over backward for others, from trying to keep the peace, avoid conflict, or be liked, what you're really doing is sacrificing yourself on the altar of other people's comfort. That's not kindness. That's self-betrayal dressed up as virtue. Most people don't even realize it. They think, I'm just a nice guy, or I just want everyone to be happy. But look a little deeper, and what you'll usually find is fear. Fear of confrontation, fear of rejection, fear of not being enough unless you're useful. It's a pattern we learn early. Maybe as kids, we were praised when we were quiet, agreeable. So we kept doing it, and it worked for a while. We got approval, we felt safe. But as adults, that same behavior leaves us wide open to being used, overlooked, and quietly resented by others and ourselves. You can't build a strong identity on constantly molding yourself around other people's expectations. Neuroscience backs this up. Your brain is wired to seek rewards, and social approval is a powerful one. Every time someone says, thank you, or you're such a good person, your brain gets a little hit of dopamine. It feels good. But over time, this creates a loop where you depend on external praise to feel okay about yourself. You stop checking in with your own needs, your own values. And in doing so, you disappear. Think about that. You disappear. You become someone who's always there for everyone else but never there for yourself. Someone who others call the nicest person, but no one really knows. Someone who's helpful, reliable, considerate, but exhausted, bitter, and quietly wondering why no one shows up for you the way you show up for them. That's what happens when you confuse kindness with submission. You start giving parts of yourself away, hoping someone will eventually notice. But the more you give, the less they see you. Because people don't value what's always available, what's always agreeable, what never pushes back. And deep down, you know it. You feel it, that little resentment that creeps in when someone asks for something and you say yes, even though every fiber of your body wanted to say no. That quiet frustration when you do the right thing and no one notices or cares. That's not compassion. That's a slow erosion of your identity. There's nothing noble about saying yes to everyone if it means saying no to yourself. And if you think constantly being the nice one will earn you love, respect, or even peace, you're playing the wrong game. Real love, real respect, comes when you show up fully as yourself, not the version that's always available, not the one that never complains. The real version, with limits, with needs, with standards, and yes, sometimes with a well-placed no. Because when you stop betraying yourself in the name of kindness, something changes, you get stronger, you get clearer from, and people start treating you differently. Not because they've changed, but because you have. You've stopped teaching them that you're always available, always agreeable, always willing to put yourself second. You've started teaching them that your time, your energy, your presence, those things are earned, not assumed. And if someone can't handle that, good, let them leave. The people worth keeping are the ones who respect the version of you that respects yourself. Not everyone deserves your energy. That's a truth most people resist because it sounds cold, harsh, maybe even selfish. But it's not. It's necessary. We walk around like we have an endless supply of ourselves to give away. Time, attention, patience, effort, like there's some infinite reserve we can just keep drawing from. There isn't. You get a limited number of days, a limited number of hours, and a limited number of chances to move your life forward. And every time you spend that energy on someone who doesn't value it, you're robbing yourself. What most people don't realize is how many distractions are disguised as obligations. You think you're being supportive, loyal, available. But often, what you're really doing is pouring your energy into black holes, relationships that go nowhere, conversations that drain you, people who take but never give. Every yes you say to them is a no to something else. No to your health. No to your goals. No to your peace. No to your potential. There's a part of you that knows this. You feel it when you walk away from another pointless conversation, another guilt-driven favor, another moment where you swallowed your needs to meet someone else's. You feel the cost, but you tell yourself it's the right thing to do. That being available makes you a good person. That being generous is always the answer. It's not. Boundaries aren't a rejection of others. They're a protection of self. And the sooner you learn that, the more your life begins to move in the direction it's meant to go. There's a neuroscience angle here that's worth understanding. Your attention is the gateway to your reality. Where your attention goes, your energy follows, and where your energy goes, your life is shaped. Your brain is constantly rewiring itself based on what you focus on. So if you're always tuned in to other people's problems, other people's needs, other people's chaos, you're literally wiring your brain to prioritize everything but yourself. You become reactive, not proactive. Drained, not driven. From. This isn't about becoming cold, shutting people out. It's about choosing wisely. Think of your energy like money in an investment account. Would you throw all your savings into a company that never grows, never gives returns, and actually loses value over time? No. You'd pull out fast and reinvest somewhere smarter. Your time and energy work the same way. Invest them where there's growth, where there's mutual respect, where it feels aligned, not obligatory. You have to audit your relationships. Ask yourself, who makes me feel more alive, more focused, more like myself after spending time with them? And who leaves me feeling like I've just run a mental marathon with nothing to show for it? That's your data. That's your evidence. Don't ignore it. People might call you selfish when you start pulling back. Let them. Most of the time, what they really mean is, you're no longer giving me the access I was benefiting from. That's not selfishness. That's self-respect. The people who actually care about you won't punish you for growing. They'll adjust. The ones who don't, let them fall away. That's not loss. That's alignment. You don't owe everyone your presence. You don't owe everyone a response. You don't owe everyone your time. You owe yourself the discipline to protect your energy like the scarce, powerful resource it is. Because that's what it is. And once it's gone, you don't get it back. People pleasing isn't kindness. It's not noble. It's not mature. It's not even about the other person. Most of the time, it's a fear-based response, a survival mechanism dressed up to look like generosity. When you're constantly scanning the room to make sure everyone's okay, constantly saying yes when you mean no, constantly shrinking your needs to avoid making others uncomfortable, you're not being kind. You're being afraid. Afraid of rejection, of confrontation, of not being liked. And when fear is driving your behavior, you're not in control. You're in defense mode. Somewhere along the line, a lot of people learned that being agreeable kept them safe. Maybe in childhood it helped them avoid conflict. Maybe they were rewarded for being quiet, polite, easy to manage. Maybe they saw that putting others first earned praise or love, so they learned to perform. Not intentionally, not manipulatively, but as a means of survival. They learned that the quickest way to be accepted was to meet other people's needs before even acknowledging their own. And now, years later, they call it kindness. They call it being a good person. But deep down, it's exhausting because it's not real. You can't live your life editing yourself just to make others feel more comfortable. You can't keep trading your authenticity for approval. That's a bad deal. Every time you pretend you're okay when you're not, every time you say yes to something that drains you, every time you silence your opinions because you're afraid they'll upset someone, you chip away at your sense of self. And eventually, you forget who you are underneath all that pleasing. This isn't compassion, it's codependency, and it will ruin your confidence. Because the more you ignore your own needs, the more you tell yourself, subconsciously, that your needs don't matter, that your voice isn't important, that your value is conditional on how useful or agreeable you are. And over time, that belief becomes a cage, a quiet one that looks a lot like being the nice one, but is actually just fear in disguise. The irony is, the more you try to keep everyone happy, the less respect you earn. People might like you, but they don't value you, they don't listen they don't take you seriously. Because you've taught them that your needs are negotiable, that your boundaries are optional, that you'll bend the moment it gets uncomfortable. And once you do that, you lose your leverage, you lose your edge. You become predictable, safe, convenient, but never powerful. Real power comes from knowing who you are and standing on it, even if it makes people uncomfortable, even if it makes them walk away. Because if someone only wants you when you're saying yes, when you're being quiet, when you're fitting in, they don't want you. They want a version of you that doesn't exist. And the longer you play that role, the more you disconnect from the parts of you that are actually worth something. Your values, your opinions, your standards, your self-respect. So here's the truth: you don't owe anyone your constant agreement. You don't owe them your silence. You don't owe them the performance. What you owe yourself is honesty. You owe yourself the right to show up as you are, even if it's not convenient for someone else. Because the goal isn't to be liked by everyone. The goal is to be respected by the right people. And that starts with respecting yourself. Kindness without strength is a liability. It sounds like a virtue, but it's not. It's a gap, a weakness people learn to exploit, whether they realize it or not. When you walk through life trying to be the kindest, most accommodating, most agreeable person in the room, without also showing that you have standards, limits, and a spine, you become easy to manipulate. Not because you're bad, not because you're not smart, but because people quickly learn there's no real consequence for taking from you. The truth is, people don't just respond to what you say, they respond to what you allow. If you're always the one who forgives quickly, who never holds others accountable who avoids hard conversations in the name of keeping the peace, then what you're really doing is signaling that your boundaries are flexible, that they're negotiable. And in the real world, that doesn't earn you respect. It earns you being overlooked, stepped over, taken advantage of. People love kindness, but they respect strength. And if you're not bringing both to the table, you're not in a healthy position. You're just hoping that being endlessly nice will protect you from pain. It won't. If anything, it invites the kind of pain that lingers: quiet disrespect, being taken for granted, being excluded from decisions, being everyone's emotional punching bag. That doesn't come from being evil or cruel. It comes from being too soft, too accessible, too unwilling to draw a line. There's a moment in life where you realize that being kind is not the same as being weak. But only if you've learned to say no. Only if you've learned to back your words with action. If you say you have limits, but you never enforce them, then you don't have limits. You have preferences. And preferences are ignored. Standards, on the other hand, are respected. And standards require strength. They require the ability to deal with discomfort, the ability to let people down, the ability to walk away when someone crosses a line. You need to understand this. People test you, not always in an intentional or malicious way, but they do it. They push to see how far they can go, how much they can get, how little they can give in return. That's human nature. And if you're the kind of person who's always saying, it's okay, even when it's not, they learn. They learn that you're safe to disappoint from, that they can hurt you and not lose access to you, that they can benefit from your kindness without ever having to reciprocate from. But when you add strength to that kindness, when you're clear, firm, grounded, that changes everything. You become someone people trust, not just because you're nice but because you're solid, reliable, because you won't lie to them just to make them feel good, because you're not afraid to have the uncomfortable conversation, to set the boundary, to enforce the limit. And that's what people actually respect. Not softness for the sake of harmony, but clarity for the sake of integrity. Being kind is a choice. But if you're being kind because you're afraid of what will happen if you're not, afraid of conflict, afraid of losing someone, afraid of judgment, then it's not a choice. It's a defense mechanism. And the moment your kindness becomes a shield to hide behind, it stops being kindness at all. Real kindness, the kind that matters, comes with truth. It comes with backbone. It comes with knowing who you are and being willing to show it, even when it's uncomfortable. Because if you want to be taken seriously, if you want to be treated with respect, you have to stop softening yourself just to be accepted. You're not responsible for fixing everyone. I know that's hard to hear, especially if you're the kind of person who feels deeply, who sees someone hurting and instinctively wants to step in and help. But there's a line between compassion and control, and most people don't realize when they've crossed it. Trying to fix people isn't always about them. It's often about your own discomfort. You see someone struggling, someone spiraling, and instead of holding space for that, you start trying to manage their life. You give advice they didn't ask for. You take on problems that were never yours. You make their healing your responsibility. That's not selflessness. That's overreach. At some point, helping becomes enabling. And the truth is, some people don't want to change. They don't want to be saved. They want attention, validation, someone to listen, but not someone to challenge them. And if you're not careful, you'll pour all your energy into trying to rescue someone who has no intention of swimming. They just want to be held while they drown. And if you stay there too long, you drown with them. It's not noble to lose yourself in someone else's chaos. It's not noble to put your life on pause while someone else keeps repeating the same cycles. You can't want growth for someone more than they want it for themselves. You can't drag them across a finish line they're not even walking toward. That's not love. That's ego. That's believing you can be the exception, the solution, the person who finally gets through to them. But real growth doesn't work that way. Change has to come from within. And if someone's not ready to face their own patterns, nothing you do will make a difference. There's also this hidden arrogance in always trying to fix people, like you know what they need better than they do. But often, people are exactly where they need to be, struggling, stuck, confused, not because they're broken, but because that's part of their journey. And by constantly stepping in to clean up the mess, you're actually robbing them of the growth that comes from facing the consequences of their choices. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do is step back and let someone fall. Let them feel it. Let them learn. You're not a savior. You're a human being with your own life to live, your own battles to fight. And if you're constantly investing in everyone else's healing but ignoring your own, that's not generosity. It's avoidance. Sometimes we focus on other people's problems so we don't have to deal with our own. We become addicted to helping because it makes us feel needed, valuable, important. But that feeling is short-lived, because at the end of the day, you're still left with yourself and the life you've been neglecting while you were busy rescuing everyone else. It's okay to care. It's okay to support. But support doesn't mean sacrificing your peace. It doesn't mean saying yes when it drains you. It doesn't mean tying your self-worth to how much you can carry for others. You're allowed to say, this isn't mine to hold. You're allowed to step away from. You're allowed to protect your energy, your time, your sanity. And the people who are really ready to grow, they won't need to be rescued. They'll meet you halfway. They'll take responsibility. They'll do the work. Because growth doesn't happen in someone else's hands. It happens when you finally decide to stand up and walk through the fire yourself. You teach people how to treat you by what you tolerate. That's not just a nice quote to throw around, it's a law. Every time you accept behavior that makes you feel small, dismissed, or drained, you're reinforcing a message. Not just to them, but to yourself. You're saying, this is okay, this is the standard. And the thing is, people don't rise to the level of your potential. They fall to the level of your boundaries. If you don't draw the line, they won't stop crossing it. It starts small, from someone speaks to you in a way that feels off. You feel that sting, that tension in your chest, but you brush it off. You don't want to make it awkward. You tell yourself maybe they didn't mean it, and so you stay quiet, you tolerate it. And the next time, it's easier for them to do it again, not because they're cruel, but because they've learned you won't push back. You've taught them that their comfort matters more than your self-respect. This is the pattern. You compromise a little, then a little more. You keep letting things slide. You convince yourself you're being mature, that you're just keeping the peace, that you're avoiding drama. But what you're actually doing is allowing disrespect to become routine. What used to feel uncomfortable starts to feel normal. And slowly, without even noticing, you lower your standards to match your tolerance. That's how people end up in lives, relationships, environments that don't reflect who they truly are, because they kept adjusting themselves instead of raising the bar. The harsh truth is this: if someone can get away with treating you poorly, they probably will, not because everyone is malicious, but because it's human nature to go where there's least resistance. If you're always agreeable, always forgiving, always available, people will keep taking, and they'll justify it, because from their perspective, you've allowed it. You've never said otherwise. You've never made it clear where the boundary is. Setting boundaries isn't about being rude or confrontational. It's about clarity. It's about teaching people that your time, your energy, your presence, those things have value, that there are limits, that there are consequences. And the moment you start doing that, everything changes. You stop attracting people who want to take advantage, and you start attracting people who recognize your worth. People who meet you with respect because they know it's not optional. This applies to every area of your life. Your work, your friendships, your romantic relationships, even your family. If you keep showing up for people who don't show up for you, that's not loyalty, that's self-abandonment. If you keep engaging with people who drain you just to avoid the discomfort of setting a boundary, you're choosing short-term peace over long-term self-respect. And that never ends well. At some point, you have to decide what kind of life you're willing to live. One where you constantly shrink yourself to fit into other people's expectations. Or one where you stand up for what you actually need, even if it makes some people uncomfortable. Because here's the truth, the people who get uncomfortable when you set a boundary were benefiting from your lack of one. And when they fall away, let them. That's not a loss that's alignment. The respect you're waiting for doesn't come from being endlessly kind or agreeable. It comes the moment you decide to stop tolerating less than you deserve. So here's the truth laid bare. Being endlessly kind isn't the path to being respected, fulfilled, or free. It's the path to being used, misunderstood, and quietly resented. You are not here to be everything for everyone. You are not here to keep sacrificing your peace so others can stay comfortable. You're here to live fully, to speak honestly, to protect your energy, and to stand for something that actually means something. It's not your job to fix everyone. It's not your role to make sure no one ever feels upset or challenged. Your responsibility is to yourself, to live with strength, with clarity, and with the courage to let go of what no longer aligns. The people who truly respect you won't be the ones who expect you to stay small and agreeable. They'll be the ones who rise when you rise, who meet you at your level, who understand that your boundaries are not a rejection, but a reflection of your self-worth. You don't need to become colder, just clearer. You don't need to stop being kind. You need to start being kind to yourself first. And the moment you do that, the world stops walking over you and starts noticing you, not for what you give endlessly, but for what you stand for unapologetically. Protect your peace. Guard your energy from. Set the standard, because you are the one teaching the world how to treat you, and it's time they learned to treat you with respect.